Hello, everybody. Welcome to my channel. This is Jason with Level Head Trading. I'm a trader and finally got to be a full-time trader in the last 6 months or so. Been learning how to trade for the last 5 years, and finally it's all starting to click. So I learned from several different people, and I thought I could do a good job at doing a YouTube channel. So that's a little bit about me. So let's just jump right into it today. I'm going to go over basically the big guys in the stock market and what's happening now that we have the Federal Reserve saying that they're going to keep interest rates where they're at, and now we have the reaction to that. I won't get into all the details of what they said, but so far after the immediate um, reaction, it's been downward. So I'm going to start off with QQQ, the Qs. So here we have a very tight daily range here, all during this period here. So you have basically 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 7 days of sideways trading. What I always like to look at is the RSI levels. Things can get really extreme to the upside, and things can get really extreme to the downside. So they were pretty extreme. So on the QQQs, right over in this area, you got up to 78 on the RSI on the daily chart. And over here at the final push on the highs, it was 75.66. And so what it looks like on the daily chart is that I'm pretty sure we're going to have to get oversold on the daily chart to see then what will be the reaction after that happens. So that's, again, these are all going to be my opinions. Take it for what it's worth. So on the weekly chart, I'm going to try to do this on each of the companies and sectors that I talk about. So on the weekly chart, this is what it looks like on the weekly chart. So right now, last week has been wiped out. And this particular type of a candle, I've been taught, because I've been learning a lot about just reading the candles without even using anything else, them giving you signals. So this is a spinning top, basically. It could also be an evening star where it forms at the very, very top of a trend and shows the possible sign of a significant reversal. So this is all of last week. That's some of that period of time frame plus a little bit more, because it includes a couple of days during this week, Monday and Tuesday, plus all of last week. So if you look at that, if you expand on that, to me, that's a very strong indication that the top for QQQs is in for quite a while. So you have this completely engulfing candle over the previous week. So that's the start of weekly consolidation. It's daily consolidation, but more importantly, it's weekly consolidation. And so then, to me, the first place it would fall would be to eventually line up with the exponential moving average, which is what I like to use, the 12 period and the 26 period. So that'll be the first small test to see the reaction when it lines up with this, because that's where I think it'll be going for sure, at least in the short term. So that's how the QQQs look, very overbought. And then on the weekly time frame, same thing. Even though it's way back here, you got the weekly RSI up to 75.9 on the weekly, and over here the average was up in the 70s. So the last really significant pullback was down here at 395. So if you're going to hold that, that would be considered healthy, because you would have only given up, I'm going to just guess. I like to use Fibonacci retracements, but I won't get into all of that today, because I'm going to cover quite a few stocks and sectors. But just eyeing this from the low to the high, if we hold this level right here, which again is about 395, then that would be a bull flag if you can hold that. So that's, to me, the most important level to hold for the big picture long term on QQQ. So let's see, what will I go into next? Let's just pick the sectors. So I'm going to go to SPY. So here you got SPY on the daily time frame first. Oh, and also notice the volume, right? So you have not had too many days to the downside with this much volume. So again, similar to the QQQ, where I showed that weekly candle from last week, looking like that was the final climax for now. Here you have big volume today, and now I'll go to the weekly chart. But again, back here, you had a daily RSI almost at 80 right there. So at some point, you're going to probably have to get down to 30 on the RSI, get oversold to maybe find a bottom, at least for that, for this period of time. On the weekly chart, let's see how it compares to what QQQ looked like. It's just beginning, just beginning weekly consolidation. So the low of last week was 482.78, and look where we got today, 482.86. So we've got 8 pennies holding us from weekly consolidation. So if tomorrow we break below by 6 more pennies, and more importantly, if we finish, quite a bit lower than that, like another dollar or two, then we'll be on our way with weekly consolidation on SPY. So SPY at the moment is holding on better than QQQ. Here you have it oversold on the weekly, 70, overbought on the weekly, got up to 70, and back here again, reached 70. And what happened back here when it reached 70, then it had a significant pullback and brought it down to 38.89. And that's where the bottom was, right there. So really, same thing with this. The only significant pullback you had was right about there, which is 465 on the weekly time frame. And so if you hold that, then that would also be a bull flag, because you're not giving back much of this move just by holding that. That would probably be, no more than a 38% retracement, which would be considered in the realm of bull flags. So that's where SPY is at the moment. Starting tomorrow, most likely that will be showing you weekly consolidation for the first time since this period here, which was about about a month ago. So that's SPY. So now let's get into some of the big guys here. Let me start off with Microsoft. So Microsoft, here's the daily candle. If you notice, they're all similar, right? Let's just go back really quickly. Here's the daily candle on Microsoft, and going back to SPY on the daily chart, just to show you that they're all coming down. You got the volume there. So again, Microsoft, you see the increasing volume. And on QQQ, on the daily chart, just a minute. I'm not sure why I don't have the volume on here. Don't know where it went. But anyway, back to Microsoft. So there it is on the daily chart, touching the 12-period exponential moving average, but now breaking below it. And on the daily time frame, you were up at 78.75 as an RSI on the daily chart on Microsoft. So now on the weekly chart, notice how all of these things I'm going over are fairly similar. So Microsoft has a little farther to go to begin weekly consolidation. That would be if it breaks 383.59. So we're still about 1% away from that. Notice the volume bar is getting close to being equal to the previous week. So we still have tomorrow left to go. So that most likely will bring the volume above the previous week. And if we do go 1% lower on Microsoft tomorrow, then we will begin weekly consolidation on Microsoft. So the key level here on Microsoft will be this low of about 363 approximately on this weekly bull flag right here. So if you hold this, then in the big picture, I don't know, that looks like it would be more than a 38% retracement, but maybe not. Again, I'm not going to go into putting the retracement things in there at this time. But that you can see is a clear level that was being held right around 363. But from where we are today, 397 to 363, that's $34. So that's maybe about 8%, 8, 9% to the downside to reach this area, which I think we will in time test. All right. So now we're going to go into Apple. So these are all the tech companies here. So looking at Apple, I'm already on the weekly time frame, so I'll just start talking about that. So here you had weekly consolidation. That's where you found your bottom. That would also line up with a monthly chart. So I'll pull that up on Apple, the monthly time frame, because I'm sure this line here, when Apple was done with its consolidation back here, which was in October of 23, that's where it reached 165.67. And then notice here, basically, this is a double top on the weekly charts. You reached a high of 199.62. Nice, simple. Again, I always mention this psychological numbers. It reached 200 to the upside. And over here, it reached 198.23. So when you're talking about those kind of numbers, 198, 199, that's a double top. And then you rejected, and then you started pulling back from that time. So Apple has been in weekly consolidation because as soon as this week happened, then that was the weekly area that you needed to break below, which was 187.45. So the low is what you needed to hold. So we broke it, started weekly consolidation, went back up here last week, again, tested this area, but by the time last week finished, you closed at 192.42, which was a couple percent better than the low here. But then we confirmed that this is resistance and now really pulled back a lot just this week. So in my opinion, you got to hold this area, which is 180. So that's really only about 2% from here. And if you can't hold that, then you're most likely going to come back down to here, which is the 170 area. And in the big picture, I did do Fibonacci retracement on this. That's why I have this 170 here. So in the big picture from the low that Apple reached, which was just the beginning of last year, the low 124 and going all the way up basically to 200. If you hold this level here of 170, then that would be a weekly bull flag still, or maybe a monthly. You could also, I'll put this on the monthly time frame. So that's a key level to me is the 170 because you're giving up $30 from the high and you ran up basically 120, let's say 128 to 200. So you went up about 82. And if you gave back 30, so that would be that's correct. That would be about that. So on the monthly time frame, you'll see that this 170 also lines up with the monthly levels. So here's the monthly chart, and there's where it is, right? So you got the high, and then you got the double top, and that's the monthly higher low, but you didn't really make a monthly higher high, right? It's a double top. So there was the high, higher low, double top, and then what happens now in the next several months. So this is a pretty key level for Apple, $170, because then that would then be a monthly downtrend. You would have the low, double top, and then if you break it, now you're in a monthly downtrend. So that would then extend all through this year. probably to find the next bottom if this does not hold. So that's Apple. I'm going to go to something that's not a tech, and then I'll go back to the tech companies. So let's go to Boeing. So I know there's some interest in that. So I did a little bit of homework on this before this video. And so we're in a box range on the low side here. And so what I noticed is if I pull this up, yeah, this is the daily time frame right here. So you gave back from the lows here of, let's see, the low here was 176. Yeah, so basically 175, and you shot all the way up to 267. I think was the high. All right. So there's the low, there's the high, and then you gave it all back. This here is a 78% retracement. So, you either got to hold this, and then that's the low, or in my opinion, you're gonna come all the way back down somewhere in this area. So what happened in here, what I noticed on the daily time frame, because you wouldn't see it on the weekly chart, which I'll show you shortly. And again, here's another point on the RSI levels. So you see the very tight range here, very, very tight for this whole period here. And notice this is the daily RSI on Boeing got to 92.69. Can you believe that? 92 on the daily chart of Boeing. Because if you look from here, there was no significant pullback except for this one little section right here, which was $230. So you went from 176 straight up. This is the only time you had some consolidation, and then you reached that 92. Wow, that's incredible. I was just looking at. I've been looking at Boeing, but I didn't look at it in all of these time frames, and I didn't go back and look at what it went to. I didn't look at the RSI levels. So wow, 92. So no wonder, like I said, if you get into the 80s, if you look at any of my other videos, you're going to at some point come down, most likely into the 20s. So here you got to 92.69, and in this pullback on this particular candle, you got to 23. So you see how that works out. You can't have it both ways. If you're going to go all the way to a 92, you're going to have some serious consolidation at some point if you didn't establish any support along the way up. So here's the interesting thing I was noticing right now as doing this video. You see this 230 low, right? So when it reached up here, where did it drop to? And this is very similar to what has happened with Tesla. If you look at my videos on Tesla, I have many videos just specifically about Tesla getting down to that 194 area. So this was the only area here where you had any consolidation. And notice when we gapped down, which is just like what happened with Tesla's earnings, it gapped down to that 193, 194 area, which was the last little bit of support on the Tesla chart. This did the same thing. It gapped down. I'm not sure, that might have been when that door blew off on the last incident that happened with Boeing, but it gapped down. And where did it gap down to? Just in this area right here. And you see how in the next couple of days that acted as resistance. So you could also look at this as a resistance zone also, which is right here. So you try to get up and confirm that this is no, you didn't even confirm it because you broke way below it. So that just clearly acted as resistance. And then what happened is, you see we have a gap area right here between this level of basically 202 and the high here was 197. So during this time frame, see where it lines up, and you see the low of this candle, that is filling up this gap right in here. And again, you don't have support here. This is just basically a week in here, and then you took off. But now you're coming back into this zone, and you got up here, and now we're in a box range. You have a low, a high, and this is a lower low, but it closed back up here. And then this is a lower high to this. And the day before, we got down here. So here's the area that you kind of need to hold if you're going to hold it. So we're in a box range. But at the same time, notice here's the 200-day moving average. It's kind of sloppy because you just went straight up, got to 92 or whatever on the RSI. And so that distorts it because then you just came back so hard that this 200 period moving average doesn't know what to do because the price is just all over the place. But we know why, because of these incidents that have been happening with Boeing. So another area, another indicator of resistance is the 200-day moving average. Notice it goes right up to the 200-day moving average, tries to hold, it can't hold above it. You see, it cannot hold above it. This was right here. You got the end of that day, you're right at 200. The next day, you're still holding right at 200. The next day, you pull back below it. Next day, you come up, you get above it, and notice how it touches. I always say you're going to touch these EMA lines when you're in a strong trend, whether it's a strong trend to the downside or a strong trend to the upside. These then act as resistance once you're in a really strong trend. So notice on this day, it gets even further above the 200-day moving average, but it hits this 12-period exponential moving average, which also lines up with this particular day here. And that's the zone of resistance at the highest point. So you can kind of say this is level 2, and then this is level 1. So level 2, you get up to there, but then you get back to level 1. And then today, again, we get up to level 2, hitting that 200-day moving average. So to me, this is resistance, and this maybe is support. Maybe is support. So that's Boeing. Okay, enough about Boeing. I spent a lot of time on that. So let's go to, I covered Apple. So let's go to Amazon. All right, so here's Amazon. Let me see what time frame I'm on here. Just a minute. This is a weekly chart. So since I'm on the weekly chart, I'll just jump right in there. I'm just kind of winging this because I didn't want to spend too much time on my own studying all these things. I figure I've learned enough about technical analysis now that I can just kind of quickly find my way around. So again, weekly RSIs, here's the 200-week moving average, and you didn't really establish anything all the way up here, and then you consolidated. So that's probably going to line up with the monthly chart. Let's put this line right here, right about 118, and see what that looks like on the monthly chart. So here is your double top. On the weekly chart, I'm just kind of doing on what most recently happened. So here's your double top. There's your consolidation. And then here you break above this area finally. You retest it right there. You see here you pulled up and then you pull back. And where did you land? You land at the upper range of here. That was the area you needed to break out of to make a higher high, which you did. And then this is the retest. All of these weeks right here is the retest of this breakout that happened, right? You got to get over that, which is 145.86. So that's why you're struggling right here. And then you break out of it and then you pull back. The low of that candle is 144, which lines up right to these. And then you make a higher high. So there's your weekly higher low right there. So initially, then this is the first area that you want to try to hold, which is, I'm just going to draw it right about there because that lines up with the area that you broke out right here. So I'm fairly certain you're going to come back and test this 144, 145 area. And we're not quite on weekly consolidation yet. So similar to one of the other ones I was talking about, probably Microsoft. So the low of last week, 153.90, and the low today, 154.81. So you got 90 cents more. If you break that low, then you're starting your weekly consolidation on Amazon. So again, there's the 200-week moving average. That would also line up with retesting this area here that you broke out of and formed a higher low. So that's going to line up with the 200-week moving average. And then just going back to the daily chart, there's how it looks. You got oversold, overbought. I keep mixing those two up. Overbought, you got to 70 on the RSI, and basically not much more than that. Because Amazon has not gone up as extremely as Microsoft and like NVIDIA and so on. So again, right, it's the first time it's getting to 70. So it didn't get extreme. So a healthy pullback, might line up with a 30 on the consolidation on the daily time frame. So here's the moving average over here presently. So it's going to look a little different than the weekly chart. And so again, this was that whole weekly area that I was talking about, that 144 area. So you can see it real clear on the daily chart. You can see how it was puttering around for many, many days and weeks. Not many weeks, but a few weeks. So that's the key area. That's the first key area is 144, 145. All right, so let's go to Meta. And then I'm going to go to Tesla and a little bit of Bitcoin. So here's Meta. Meta was another extreme one, similar to how Boeing got to a 90. So Meta on the daily chart here, 80s, and then recently up to 78. And back here again, not as extreme. Yeah, these are all around 65. But more importantly, it's just incredible what Meta did. So from the low, Meta went from $88 to today, reaching 406. So I don't know what that is, 500% in 1 year. So that's just insane. And so where do we stand? I'm pretty sure. You know what? That was the weekly chart I was looking at. I thought I was on the daily chart. This is a weekly chart. So the weekly chart was at 80. All right, that makes more sense. Because I was like, really? That's not that much for the daily, considering how far I went. Okay, so you got to 80 on the weekly chart. And most recently at the high, we got to 78. So on the daily, so you see, here's the 200-week moving average, $259, $260 is the 200-week moving average, and you're at 390. So you're quite a ways from the moving average. So on the daily chart, daily RSI here, 78, 79, back here, 83, so on. So here we are on the daily chart. So Meta really, it's just beginning to have daily consolidation. And that's all really you can say at this point. Right now, it's just touching the 12-period exponential moving average, which I say at some point you're going to end up touching that. So Meta's touching that, but if you look at the daily candle, then what happened today is that it extended back up and basically reached the bottom of the previous day. So the low of yesterday was 399.57, and today we reached 398. So you just went up and you touched it, and then you pulled back. So to me, that's the top, and we'll see what happens. There's really not much to say because not a lot has happened here. It's just starting its daily consolidation, but even that, it didn't pull back that much, and it's right at 12 EMA. Do I have anything else? I did SPY. Yep. Did I do SPY? I'm pretty sure I did. I hope I did. Well, I'm just going to assume I did. I don't remember. So I'm going to do my last one here today, and I'm going to wrap it up. So now I'm going to jump to Bitcoin. So here's Bitcoin. All right. So what's happened? It's having some consolidation for sure. And again, all of this happened after the Federal Reserve minutes. All right, so Bitcoin most recently, am I on the daily chart or the weekly? Just give me a minute. Okay, I'm on the daily chart. All right, so here is the high, the highest price that Bitcoin has reached since the all-time high, which was 49,102. So here's the here's the daily downtrend. So here you have the bear flag. You make a lower and a lower low. So now, if you're going to change the daily trend, if you're going to change the daily trend on Bitcoin, number one, you have to hold this low of 38,501. You have to hold the low of 38,501. So it's right about there. And most recently, we got up to 43,872. I think where I had the line before I moved it, it was measuring from here to from the low of 38,501 to the high of 43,872. Just looking during this time period, I was measuring, okay, if it's a bull flag, I'm not considering this time period. I'm just taking the low. If you're going to confirm a daily trend change, you need to not give back more than about 40% of the move to create possibly a bull flag. So again, if you don't pull back more than about 40% of this move, then you could potentially hold and then push to a higher high. So then you would be back to a daily uptrend, not a weekly uptrend, but a daily uptrend. So that's what would need to happen. You need to hold this 38,501 approximately somewhere in here and not give back too much more. I think it was around 41,700. I think that was about a 38 retracement. So if you do that and then you push to a higher high, then you will have a daily trend change. One other note, and then I'll be done, is here you have the crossover of the 12 period crossing underneath. So then you got quite a bit below it, and then you more than touched it, right? You more than touched it. You got over it, but if you're going to make these cross over soon, then you need to hold that area of about 41.7 and then have a really strong day, and then you will cross the 12 back over the 26 period moving exponential moving average. And the daily RSI is at 51. So from that 38,501, you went from 36 on the daily RSI. You weren't really oversold at that point, and you cooled off that. RSI. But in the bigger picture, looking at everything, looking at how all the big ones, Microsoft, finally now they're having the consolidation. They're now starting to come down like Bitcoin already did before. To me, that will make it hard for Bitcoin to then go to higher highs if the overall market has some more significant downside. So anyway, that's my video for today. That is the stock market roundup. That's what I think I'm going to call it there. So have a good day, and we'll talk again soon. If you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe. At some point, I'm going to get that little thing to click like everybody else does that you can tap on, but some of you have figured out how to do it. So appreciate the views, and have a good night.